Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. We have finished our SEC football predictions, but today we're going to give you our SEC conference recap. So we're going to break down the projected SEC records and give you our projected SEC standings for the 2018 season. The SEC was really pretty straightforward when it came down to these conference standings. There were no crazy tiebreakers, and there was really no major surprise team that came out of the East or the West. And we'll start over here with the West. As always, I'm not going to give you my predictions for these teams. You can go back and watch those videos. I'm not going to break down the losses again and the wins again, so you can go check out the videos for these. These are just the way everything fell after we did the predictions. But no surprise in the West that Alabama finishes number 1, 12-0, 8-0 in conference. They are obviously the big-time favorite to make the SEC championship once again, winning the West, probably winning the SEC, and some people even have them pegged to win the national championship again. So no surprise there. You have Auburn and Mississippi State tied at 9-3 for second place, but Auburn owning the slight edge there with a 6-2 record in conference over Mississippi State with a 5-3 record in conference, and that's because I have Auburn picked to beat Mississippi State on the road. So, of course, if Mississippi State were to defeat Auburn at home, then Mississippi State would be the number 2 team in the West, Auburn dropping to 3rd. But that's how I have it right now. Obviously, fairly interchangeable there. You got A&M here at number 4, right ahead of LSU, 7-5, 4-4 in conference. LSU 6-6, 3-5 in conference, which I know a lot of people disagree with that prediction, but I'm just not feeling this LSU team this year. I know they have some depth, and I know they have plenty of talent, but I just don't. I think the schedule's a little too tough, and this, like I said, isn't one of the better LSU teams that we've seen in recent memory. Arkansas and Ole Miss rounding out the bottom of the West, and as you can see, a minor tiebreaker here. Both Arkansas and Ole Miss I have at 2-6 in the SEC, but because of the head-to-head tiebreaker there for Arkansas defeating Ole Miss, and the fact that I have Arkansas finishing 6-6, and they're both not tied at 5-7, Arkansas finishes ahead of the Rebels to stay out of the West cellar. And over here on the East, Georgia, the big-time favorite in the East, making the SEC championship last year, winning it, getting all the way to the national championship before losing to Alabama. This is going to be a much closer race, at least I see it, in the East this year. Georgia didn't really have much competition in the East last year, but this year they have a solid Florida team led by Dan Mullen. You have a South Carolina team who I actually have picked to be Georgia's lone loss, that being early on in the season at Williams-Brice Stadium, so I have that being a big upset there. But other than that, there's a pretty big drop-off from those top 3 teams to the other half of the SEC East. Florida and South Carolina both tied at 9-3 and 6-2 in conference, so you had to go to the head-to-head tiebreaker there, and I gave that edge to Florida, predicting the Gators to defeat the Gamecocks in the regular season. But all it's going to take is for one extra Georgia slip-up, or maybe Florida or South Carolina pull off another upset to really compete for Georgia for that top spot in the SEC East. I only have one game separating both Georgia, Florida, and South Carolina in the SEC East for that division crown. So Georgia needs to be careful there, but I still think they're the favorite, and I still think they will win the East fairly handily. Missouri's 3-5 in conference, 7-5 overall, another solid season for Barry Odom. Kentucky 2-6 in conference, 6-6 overall, just barely making a bowl. I was really hesitant. Am I going to put them at 5-7? Am I going to put them at 6-6? But I gave them the edge to get to a bowl game. Like I said, mostly due to that defense. And then Vanderbilt and Tennessee, another small tiebreaker here, but I have them both finishing 4-8, 1-7 in conference. And because I both have them finishing 4-8, it came down to the head-to-head tiebreaker, which I'm giving to Vanderbilt, who hosts the Volunteers this year, and a Tennessee team that I really think is going to struggle. So really, no major surprises in the conference standings. I know some people could say it's a bit of a surprise to see Tennessee finishing last in the East instead of maybe Vanderbilt or somebody like that. I just don't see this being a great year for Jeremy Pruitt and his new Tennessee team coming as a first-year head coach. I think he's going to get the Volunteers to where they need to be in time. I just don't see it happening this year. So I have Tennessee pegged last in the East. Ole Miss, understandable to see them pegged last in the West. Can't make a bowl game this year. Plenty of talent there, but a tough schedule. Obviously, 6 fairly tough teams in the SEC West, and then drawing some difficult teams out of the East as well. SEC Championship, I have Alabama versus Georgia, a rematch of last year's national championship, and this one is bound to be a classic. I think this is the one we're all hoping to see, is another Bama-Georgia rematch here. And if Georgia doesn't lose to South Carolina and can be undefeated going into this game, there's the potential to see that this SEC championship game won't even matter when it comes down to the playoff race. If both Alabama and Georgia are undefeated and the game stays close, there's that chance that Alabama and Georgia could both make the college football playoff, just like they did last year. Now, if Georgia has a one loss and they lose to Alabama in this game, I think that puts them out of the college football playoff. Whereas if Georgia has the one loss and beats Alabama, I think Alabama could still make the college football playoff, assuming this game's going to be close, which I think it will be. I think this game will be another instant classic, much like the national championship was last year. And I think this is the pick for most people's SEC championship is Alabama versus Georgia. And if I had to choose right now who I think would win this game, I would have to go with Alabama. I really have a lot of faith in Tua Tagovailoa and the Alabama offense. And Georgia's defense does have some shoes to fill there, losing a lot of talent to the NFL last year. I still think they'll be very dominant. They'll still have some shoes to fill there. But I would have to pick Alabama to beat Georgia in the SEC championship game. But it will be another thriller, another classic, and very, very fun to watch in that first Saturday in December. So this is the projected SEC standings for the 2018 college football season. I'd love to hear what you guys think down in the comments. Let us know who you think should be higher or lower in these standings, who you think the surprise team could be, and all that good stuff right there. As always, if you haven't already, please go check us out on Twitter at Gridiron Expert with no the, just at Gridiron Expert. We're getting a couple followers every day now, so we'd love to get a huge following there. Also on Instagram at The Gridiron Expert, and always here on YouTube. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you next time on The Gridiron Expert.